Today I wanted to make a video on can you learn Japanese from anime? If you're new here, I want you to go watch a couple other videos of mine first so you can see me speaking Japanese. I believe that's important for your subconscious as far as taking advice from some random guy on the internet. I'm technically fluent in Japanese, though I don't really care for labels like that. I think they get in the way of actual progress, but I am technically fluent. I lived in Japan for about 10 years. I worked there. I went to school there in English, by the way, not in Japanese. And when I was in the military, I was there as well. So I have a bit of a background in this area. And I wanted to help the people out by making this video because it's a common question that I get as someone who speaks Japanese. So let's get started. Yes, you absolutely can, but there's a catch. So right away, I want to address the fears that people at least display to me when they want to get into Japanese through anime. And it's the fear of sounding weird when it comes to speaking to people. It is a genuine fear that I believe has some merit. But I want to enlighten you that if you're ever in Japan someday, or maybe you live there now, or you'll live there like I did, most people speak the same way you'll hear in an anime. I don't know if that sentence came out correctly, but the way you hear Japanese in anime is how people speak it on the streets. When you start to make friends, when you start to go out, hang out with people, it's the same words, it's the same cadence. That's how they talk. I would say about 90 to 95% of the Japanese that you'll hear can be correlated to some sort of anime. So watching anime and learning from them is a great way to just get a natural voice in your ear. So I'm going to get into the approach if you want to start doing this today as soon as you click off of this video, or as soon as you watch another one of my videos or listen to my music and then go study. Just a shameless plug. But diversify your approach. So for example, I love JoJo's Bizarre Adventure. That's probably my favorite. However, if I was only looking to learn Japanese from that, I would be missing out on a lot of areas. I also love Death Note. That covers some other areas too. But I think it's important to learn something from everything. So maybe watch sports, anime, romance anime, even if you don't like it. Just watch these things. That way you can start to get certain vocab words that you'll miss out on other ones with. And just a bonus tip, I do this, but I don't watch the full series. This is something that is very useful for you if you just don't want to watch romantic things, you don't like high school drama anime, or you don't like basketball or whatever. You don't have to watch the entire series. Just pick a couple episodes, maybe the pilot, and a couple episodes after that, and you'll probably get all of the vocab that you need. Okay, now that we've got that out of the way, use discernment when it comes to real-world application. If you're watching this video, you'll most likely end up in Japan someday, or live there like I did. And there's a process of learning Japanese all around, but particularly through anime, where you need to use your discernment. What I mean basically is don't be that guy or girl, whoever you are. I've seen this when I was living there. There's a bad context to use words, and there's a good context to use words. Say for instance, I'm watching JoJo's Bizarre Adventure, and I'm watching one of the Pillar Men fight JoJo, and I'm listening to their dialogue, and I'm picking up vocab words. These may be useful to know and use in different contexts, but you may want to consider the delivery, the conjugation, that kind of thing, because they're probably not saying really kind words to each other. Does that make sense? I hope so. So don't run up into a restaurant when you get to Tokyo and you say some words that one of the Pillar Men say to JoJo when he's greeting him. That's probably not the words you want to use. Or if they're telling you, hey, there's a 30-minute wait on this table, you're not going to run up and say, dare ni mo yuzuru kiwanai. It's just not something you want to do. So use your discernment, please. That's all I ask. I've seen this too many times in person, literally in real life, and it's weird. It's weird for the Japanese people. It's weird for me and my friends who are American there to see that. And just please don't be that person. And all you have to do is pay attention to the context. So there's bad news and good news with this part. The bad news is sometimes you will be that person. You're going to accidentally go out of context, or you're going to say something a little too casual to someone, maybe elderly, or you're going to say something that's a little weird to say to somebody you're first meeting. But it's okay. I promise you it's not that bad. You really can't embarrass yourself more than I have in the span of 10 years. Any embarrassment you'll ever face, I've probably done that and more. Not to gatekeep you, but I'm just saying I've made a lot of mistakes when it comes to speaking Japanese and learning it, but it's really not that bad. I would just say it's bad news because you're not going to be able to avoid it sometimes, and it is what it is. Another part of the bad news, well, not so much bad news, but some sentences and phrases and things that you'll say, you won't really be able to understand why you understand them before you're able to speak them. So there's some sentences that I can say clearly, but I can't break it down to you grammatically, and I can't break it down to you the order, but I can say it. Native speakers understand me perfectly. And the same thing on the other way around. They'll talk to me. Say I was at work or something. A native speaker will talk to me and I understand it perfectly, but I don't really know how to explain why I understand that sentence. This is another issue in Japanese in general, or language learning in general, but particularly in anime because of the context and things like that. Sometimes your brain will just pick out these patterns and it'll recognize it far before you're able to explain it. I say that to say it gets annoying sometimes because you want to have a deep grasp of what you're saying and what you're hearing, but sometimes it's just not going to be there, and it is what it is. The good news, your demeanor overall will override anything you say. So even if you say something that maybe one of the pillar men in JoJo would say to JoJo, but you have a nice calm demeanor to you, or a polite body language, they're gonna know what you mean. I've done it a lot. Well, I wouldn't say a lot. I've done it often, and it's never really been an issue. They may give you a slight look, something strange, but it's nothing bad at all. And honestly, when you ask them for advice, they're more than willing to help you. This is for people who are gonna end up there one day, or if you're already in Japan. So don't stress about it too much. It's really not that big of a deal. Your demeanor will override any words you'll use. And again, if you pay attention to the context in which these words and sentences and phrases are being used, it won't be that hard to choose what not to say and what to say. Just like in English, it's the same way. If I'm watching Frieza and Goku talk, I naturally know I shouldn't be saying this at the restaurant, or I shouldn't be saying this at the supermarket. Maybe some of the vocab words I can use, but I shouldn't be giving that kind of delivery. And it's not something that you'll have to stress out about. It's going to naturally happen, just like it naturally happens in English. The third point I want to make is that sometimes, even if something isn't useful, you will still be able to transcribe that into useful context over time. So I don't know if transcribe is the right word. Transcribe to me means to take it from one form and put it to another. I get that word from music. Say if I'm in the key of C major and I take a song and I transcribe it to D flat major, that's a transcription. I don't know if that's the correct word in this context, but that's what I mean. If I'm learning something that is said in Death Note, but the context is off and it's not a tone that you'll typically see in public, there's still some vocab words that you'll be able to pick out. And then you can conjugate those correctly into a good context. You can make those into sentences that you can practice, or other phrases or something that's just going to help you speak the language. What's good about this is that your brain's going to do that anyways. So you'll hear things out of context and it will latch on to something that you've heard before, and it'll put those pieces together without you really knowing it. I go into detail about this in my starting a language from scratch video, so check that out. It's also in Japanese. But that's a big point in learning Japanese from anime in particular. And I really say this is a great approach because if you're an English speaker, Japanese is not in the same form as English. So if you're trying to think of words on the fly and you're trying to make sentences as you say them, it's going to sound really weird and it's really difficult to get your point across. But if you learn it in different contexts, your brain's going to be able to pick out these patterns quite well. And from there, it's just plugging and playing different vocab words. So you can say, I go to the gym, I go to the store, I go home. But instead of trying to create that sentence, you'll naturally be able to spit it out. And all you're doing is substituting the vocab word. And that won't even take much effort after some time. Okay, some closing points on this whole anime approach. I'll continue to make videos about this in the future, more in detail. But these are just some closing thoughts that I wanted to get across. Number one is don't stress yourself out over this. There is no clear-cut path to learning Japanese. There's no perfect anime. There's no perfect route. But I do encourage people to watch anime. One, because it's easy. And two, it's something you can do a lot. And Japanese in particular is a very input and output based language. So some languages, well, I think every language is input output, but particularly Japanese, it requires a lot of speaking out loud and a lot of input because our brains are just not wired to receive it well if you're a native English speaker like I am. I learned Japanese in my mid-20s and I speak it now and listen to it now with no problem. But for a while, it was just so difficult. I had to slow it down. I had to pause and rewind. And I recommend you do this too, because eventually it will speed up. But it's not like when I was learning Italian. When I was learning Italian, the form is pretty much the same as English. So I can follow along quite well once I get a couple vocab words down and I get some filler words in. But with Japanese, there's so much order confusion for a native English speaker. And this is why I really recommend the anime approach, or just input-output approach using anime, because it's easy to watch an entire season in a weekend. Also, because this is the Japanese that you'll hear when you're out and about, especially if you make friends in Japan, or you date, or you want to have a job there and have a social life. These are the same cadences, the same vocab words, the same context, the same little nuances that you'll hear in person. So this is another reason I would highly recommend watching anime. And this is why I wanted to give you the comfort of using this approach, because I don't think it's talked about enough, especially from someone like me who learned it at a later time in life. Anyways, that's about it. Please have fun with this approach. Don't make it a task. Don't try to figure out every single word in a sentence. Try to gather the meaning of the sentence. I'll go into this on the next time I talk about this topic. But have fun and don't stress yourself out with this. Again, I just wanted to give you some comfort from a fluent speaker and let you let go of the fear of sounding crazy when you go to Japan. I know there's a polite and casual way to talk, but again, your demeanor will override anything that you think you're doing wrong. I promise you this. So take that comfort and move with it and enjoy yourself. Again, if you want a more detailed starter guide on how to start a language from scratch, I have it in Japanese. I'll put it somewhere or in the description. I don't know. And you can click on that and get started with that. And if you have any questions, comments, concerns, video ideas, you can leave it in the comments, and go ahead and subscribe, hit the bell, or I will summon the Haman energy and hit you with this kick in particular. And I will see you in the next one. Peace. Today I wanted to make a video about, can you learn anime from Japanese? Hold on. I said anime from Japan. Hey guys, today I wanted to make a video on, can you learn anime from Japanese?
You need to leave!
Hey guys. Hey guys, and today I wanted to make